Sponsored by Jiffy Apps.
Welcome again to the Business Expert Show, and we're here today with Andrei Mincov of Mincov Law.
That's what it is.
Yes. And, well, I guess the really big question, what made you and how did you become a intellectual property lawyer?
Well, actually, it happened to me twice. The first time was when I just joined the Russian law school. And the reason I joined a Russian law school was in Russia, if you don't join a university, you have to join the army. And I didn't want to join the army, but I had no idea I wanted to be a lawyer. But the closest I got to knowing that I wanted to do law was when I remembered that when I was a kid, I was always arguing with my parents, always coming up with some smart-ass arguments why things had to be done my way. And everybody told me, you gotta be a lawyer. So really, that was the extent of my knowledge about the legal profession. So I joined the law school. I didn't really like it all that much until one day my father, who was a famous Russian composer, heard his music on the radio advertising Samsung, and they didn't ask permission. So he called the radio station and told them, you can't just take my music and use it as you want. Yeah. And they told him to sit down, shut up, and be happy that they're making him even more famous. He didn't like that very much. So he slams down, says, I'll see you in court. He slams down the phone, and then he thinks, so who's going to take this to court? Because it was 1995, I think. And really, Russia didn't have all that many copyright lawyers because Russia just had its new copyright, the first post-Soviet Copyright Act.
Right.
So he asked me, do you want to do this? And I had really no idea about copyright, no idea about what you do in the courtroom, no idea about anything. All I was learning was just some theoretical stuff, none of which I've used ever since. But I said, sure, let's do it. And I was, building the plane as I was flying it. I learned on the go, and we took them to court. I ripped them apart, and then they bumped the judge, and then we lost. And I remember this as it was yesterday. I was sitting in my room, like all messed up. My dad comes in my room and says, "So what are you going to do now?" And I go, "I don't know. I think I've done everything that I should have done. I have no idea how I could have done it any better. We got everything laid down properly, and we had this crazy decision that makes no sense." And he says, "If you're not going to appeal this, you should quit your law school and find yourself another profession." And I will always be grateful for those words because it really put things into perspective.
So how did the appeal go?
We lost the appeal. We appealed it even higher to one instance short of Supreme Court of Russia. And mind you, that was my very first case, and I'm on my own fighting, 3, 4, 5 lawyers on the other side. So we finally won on that new appeal, and so the whole thing went back. We won again, and so probably the whole thing took me about 2.5 years to go through. We won, and in the process, not only did I become really knowledgeable about the tiny little things that always go with copyright and intellectual property, I also got very passionate about protecting ideas and, as the way I put it now, protecting ideas and covering assets.
Right.
So that was the first time I became an intellectual property lawyer. In 2007, me and my family we decided to move to Canada from Russia after I've been a lawyer there for 13 years. So after 13 years of practice and my PhD in law in Russia, I had to go back to law school again for the full 3 years. They gave me no credits, nothing. And I said to myself, you want to be really open-minded to everything else because you don't know if you love IP simply because it just happened that way or because there's something else. So I was honestly and genuinely open-minded to pretty much every other area of law, and I hated it. I hated it, genuinely and honestly, I hated most of them. And every single time the issue had something to do with intellectual property, my eyes lit up. And I feel blessed that I was able to go through the whole thing, become a lawyer in Canada and go back to doing what I love doing best and what I do best.
It's quite the story.
Thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, I've known you for a number of years, and I think I even introduced you now to other people as the best pirate hunter in Canada, because I don't know of anybody better to stick after intellectual property.
Thank you. Thank you. You're doing the right thing.
Tell us about your project, the Trademark Factory.
Trademark Factory is something I came up with just over a year ago. As a new lawyer in Canada, as a new immigrant to Canada, I obviously had to think really hard, how can I position myself so that I don't starve looking for clients? And a lot of that was about finding the right offer, the right marketing approach. Because pretty much every lawyer who understands trademarks can file trademarks. Right. We all use the same checklist. We all go through the same procedures. We all read the same books. We all read the same cases. And trademarks are binary. You either get one or you don't. So it's very difficult to be the best lawyer or the better lawyer, because really nobody can assess whether you're better or not. So what I was trying to do is simplify the trademark process for business owners. Because looking at what the competition has to offer, it's beyond me how those firms actually get clients. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but business owners don't understand how the trademarking process works. So when they receive a 3-page schedule of fees listing what they're going to pay when something happens, this happens, you pay that, this happens, you pay this, I don't understand how you can actually make a business decision, let alone a meaningful business decision. And what I wanted to do is to come up with something that's going to make it very simple for them, A, to make a decision, yes, I want the trademark done, and B, have a budget for it. So I was simplifying it until one day I went to one of those workshops that we all love going to so much. And the presenter was really stressing the idea of offering guarantees. I think, how can I add a guarantee to a legal service? Because nobody does that. And so I started running with this idea that I can probably figure out a way around this. And I just sat down in my room and thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Because I know that I stand by the work that I do. And if I mess up, it shouldn't be the client's money to pay for it. So as soon as we offer the guarantee, we're the first to the day, we're the only company who offers 100% money back guarantee if your trademark does not get approved by the trademarks office. And we have a flat rate and the 100% guarantee. As soon as we introduce those offers, the business started going up like this, because it's became so much easier to explain to business owners what they're buying. Because nobody wants to buy my time. They want to get the result, and the result is their trademark registration in the form of a certificate that we actually, put in a frame and give to the business owner.
So no other lawyer out there? Is there another lawyer out there that sells result in that time?
No. Some of them do offer flat rates on certain things, which don't cover everything. We cover everything. Some of them might offer partial guarantee on their fees if they messed up really badly. Our guarantee, if we tell you it's registrable and it isn't, then you get it whatever the reason for it. And there's a lot of subjective things that go into trademark registration. It goes to one examiner, they're going to say it's a great application, we love it. It's going to go to his friend next door, and they're going to come up with a bunch of crazy objections, and it's sometimes very difficult to explain. And but we want the risk to lie with us, not with the client.
Yeah.
I think it's a good business decision on my end, and certainly a good decision on my customer's end.
So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen businesses do around trademarks or lack of trademarks?
Well, it's really with trademarks and with everything else about the law, there are two big mistakes. You don't do things you need to do, and you do things that you don't need to do. Right? And just, I would say trademarks is very much like insurance in a lot of ways. You don't really get upset that your house did not burn down if you have insurance. Right? And a lot of people say, well, you know what, I've been out there for years and years and nothing happened, why should I register? And like literally a few months ago, BC had this big dispute where a flooring company in Richmond been out there for 20 years. They didn't have their trademark done, so suddenly another flooring company a mile away from them registered the trademark that's the same name as the first guy's. And it became registered because the first guys didn't do anything about it. So not surprisingly, the guys who've been around for 20 years got a little upset.
Yeah.
And so they had to hire lawyers and fight that trademark, and eventually they won, which is good. So
Yeah.
Canada and the US are one of the very few countries that give some protection to unregistered trademarks. In most countries of the world, it's not even the case. If you don't have it registered, you don't have a brand at all. So in Canada, there is some minor protection, but I can guarantee you that they've spent a lot of money on their lawyers, and they've probably spent about 30 to 40 times more than a trademark registration would have cost them. And
Wow.
why would you want to do that? It's beyond me. Because really, with trademarks, there are two sides to, well, three sides to why you want to register a trademark. And in fact, these three parts is how I explain to clients when they say, well, Andrei, should I register or not? I say, well, ask yourself these three questions. So the first question you ask yourself is, if you get a letter from a lawyer acting for somebody else demanding that you stop using your own trademark, would that be a big problem? Would you go and fight it? Because if you are going to fight it, it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's a lot easier to do it if you have a trademark registration.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same vein, even if you say, I'm not going to fight, I'm just going to let it go, how much would it cost you to rebrand? For some businesses, it's going to cost them, $80 to print a new batch of business cards, which is probably not a good reason to register a trademark. For some businesses, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars, because they have to do the banners, the website, this and that, and it adds up. So that's the first question. The second question is, if you saw a competitor use your brand to advertise their stuff, would that be a problem? Would you take them to court? Would you consider taking them to court? And some businesses say, yeah, of course, because that's about my brand, that's how I get my clients, and I don't want to lose them to somebody else. And some say, no, we really don't care. And it's funny because a while ago, I saw, I noticed a trademark infringement, so I contacted the trademark owner saying, well, I saw a bus of a real estate agent who is using your trademark, probably without your permission. Do you want to do something about it? He said, no. I said, why would you then register your trademark if not to stop other competitors from using your mark? Well, anyway, so if it's a no, then it's no. And the third question is, if you were to sell, franchise, license out, or just exit your business, would you get more money for the brand? Is the brand worth anything when you're not in the company? Right? And this is the reason why I've trademarked Trademark Factory, because this is a brand that's going to stand on its own even if I'm no longer there.
Right.
And I'm not trademarking Mincov Law Corporation because really, who cares? Like if I'm not in the company,
Mincov wasn't there.
yeah, Mincov wasn't there. But while I'm there, nobody can take it away from me anyway. So, and And the important thing is to understand is you don't have to answer yes to all three questions to decide if it's good.
Yes to one.
If it's at least to one, it's worth it. It's actually a simpler way to put it. Something I came up with recently. I just asked a person, like for example, let's say he runs a plumbing company, right? So I asked him, so imagine that you get a call from a headhunter tomorrow saying that another plumbing company really wants him as their employee, and they're going to pay him twice as what he's making as the owner of the company, of the plumbing company. Would you consider closing down the business and joining them as their employee? And some say yes, because I just want to do plumbing. I don't want to look for clients. I'm not in this for building a plumbing empire. And some say no way, because I know I'm going to be hiring plumbers myself, and they're going to be doing work all around Canada. I know it's going to be a big thing, and I'm not interested in doubling the what I'm making, because I know it's going to be 10, 50, 100 times more. So if you are the person who's going to give up for a slightly better paycheck, you shouldn't be thinking about trademarks, because one day you will get that call. And if you are building the empire, then by all means you have to do it. And it's the investment for trademarks is really not that substantial. It's if you break it down into how long it takes to get it registered, and it's about 18 months in Canada. So the flat rate that we're charging in Canada with tax and the government fees, if you break that down into 18 months, you're probably looking at $3-4 a day. So it's what most people spend on coffee. So to not protect your own brand, I don't blame people who don't get it, but I'm surprised at people who don't get it.
So we're looking at a book here. And this is The Ultimate Insider's Guide to Intellectual Property, written by Andrei Mincov. So what inspired the book, and where can we find it?
The book, I wrote it for non-lawyers, people who don't want to be lawyers, people who are not interested in understanding all minute details of law. My claim to fame with this book is it doesn't have a single footnote. So it's written for normal people, for them to understand how IP works. And the subtitle of the book is When to See an IP Lawyer and Ask Educated Questions about Copyright, Patents, Trademarks, Trade Secrets, Industrial Designs, and Contracts. Right? And other ways of protecting your ideas and covering your assets. So the idea is when to see the lawyer. Right? It goes back to what we started with. The book is supposed to give you enough of a framework to know what questions you should be asking and when you should be going to see one. And the way I look at that is a lot of business owners have it backwards, because they're thinking, I don't know when it's the right time to go see an IP lawyer. Whereas what they should always be starting with is thinking, what is it that they're building? Because intellectual property is just a tool.
Okay, so I guess straight to the point, who should be reading the book?
Business owners who are intimidated by lawyers, by not knowing much about intellectual property, those people who will delay going to see a lawyer until disaster strikes. Because what the book is going to do is it's not going to solve all their problems. It's not going to give them all answers to all of their questions, of course. But what it will do is it will make it easier for them to navigate, and it will make it easier for them to go to ask questions that actually make sense for their business. Because what often happens is business owner goes to a lawyer, gets an opinion on 15 pages, and the business owner has no idea what it actually means, has no idea how to implement it, because it will just, on the one hand, this case says that, on the other hand, this case says this, and there is no actionable
So
steps.
if the business owner who came to the lawyer with a plan
Yeah,
and said, "How does my intellectual property fit?"
yeah,
then he has answers because everybody sees you're all focused on the same plan.
exactly. So
This is what you need.
you always have to know where you're going, and a lot of clients don't have that. And this is the reason why I actually came up with another service that I call Intellectual Property Strategy Review. It's one of those crazy services that my clients do most of the talking, and I do most of the asking. And most of them find it fascinating because I'm asking questions they never thought about. And I've had situations where people had to rethink their whole business from scratch because they realized that they haven't looked beyond their nose. They're just doing things, they're building things, and they don't know where they're going. They just keep being busy. And some of it does have, to do with intellectual property, but some others don't. So always, and I cover a lot of that in the book. So it has 3 parts. The first part is 10 big ideas about law in general and intellectual property in specific. To me, they answer about 85% of all the questions that I ever get asked. So the second part is information about specific areas of IP. So copyright, trademarks, patents, industrial designs, trade secrets, and contracts. And the third part, we're actually putting everything together. So it contains a set of actionable steps. So if you're a business owner, what do you have to do? How do you have to untangle it before you go and see a lawyer? So that's what the book is about.
Okay. Was that one piece of advice that you would give a business owner looking at their business and their intellectual property?
So one piece of advice is think about it. Intellectual property can be a really powerful tool, and it's designed to protect the little guys against the big guys. The big guys can drown their competition in advertising dollars and litigation dollars. If you're just starting your business, intellectual property can be the only competitive advantage you can actually get. And with that in mind, you have to find somebody who can walk you through that, whether it's me or somebody else, but you do need to think about IP. And if you think that I'm the right person to help you with that, feel free to find me on my website. It's mincovlaw.com, mincovlaw.com, or my second website at trademarkfactory.ca, and read the book.
Thank you, Andrei, for coming to the Jiffy Apps office for this interview.
Thank you for having me over.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Business Expert Show. And we would like to ask you at this time, please click the subscribe button or send us your email address. We would love to send you more shows, more advice, and help you grow your business.